Good morning, George Hepworth here, Grover Park Consulting. Let's build Mike's mobile library. Today we're going to fix an error I made in the previous session, and then we're going to move on to using the OnSelect event, the SetVar and patch methods, and we're going to add new records to our underlying table for the first time. Okay, I've opened my Microsoft 365 PowerApps development environment and opened Mike's mobile library application. And we're focused on the edit publication screen, which is only partially completed. As you may recall from looking at the production version, we still have some work to do, but I wanted to finish out one part of this today. I have a problem that I want to clean up before we move on. Actually, this became apparent to me yesterday, or this morning, I should say. As I was reviewing yesterday's video, I realized that there were some errors, or not errors, but warnings on the drop-down boxes. And I had completely ignored those because I was so focused on the other subjects that I was trying to get to. So as I was preparing for this session, I decided to look at them more closely, and I realized what the problem is and how to fix it. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now, and then we can move on to the main focus, which is using the patch method to add a new record into our underlying table. If I hover the cursor over the warning triangle, you'll see that the message is incompatible types for comparison. These types can't be compared, number and text. If I click on the icon and then edit in the formula bar, PowerApps will tell me where the problem is. The problem is, you see these sort of light green or aquamarine underline under the equal sign, and if I hover the cursor over that, I get the same message, incompatible types. What that means is that on the left side here, I have a number. The ID is a number. On the right side, I have a string or a text value. This item refers to the record, or this item in the form that we're editing. It refers to .genre ID is the genre ID field in that record, and its value. But its value is exposed as a text string, not as a number. So in order to dismiss this error, I need to do something. Now, PowerApps gave me a warning rather than an error because it's smart enough to go ahead and manage that. And it did so in the publications version as well, or excuse me, in the production version as well. But in order to compare a number to a number, I have to convert this string to a number, and I do that by using the value method, value expression. By setting this item to its value, I now have a number compared to a number, and I've got rid of that little warning that says I can't compare a number to a string. I will do the same thing for these two, which I hope have the same error, and we can fix them the same way. I like to edit in this format because it's easier to see, and yeah, it's exactly the same. So I just type value as the expression. Now I get another error because it's an incomplete syntactically, or it's a syntactically incomplete expression. As soon as I put my closing parentheses in, that goes away and my warning goes away here. And we'll do the same for this one. Add the expression to convert the text string to a number, and now I'm comparing a number to a number, and PowerApps is happy again, and my warnings go away. Okay. We'll save and come back. I tend to save much more frequently than I used to. Over the years, I've learned that that's a very good strategy, whether you're working with an Access ACCDB or a PowerApps application. So we're ready to look at the way we're going to add a new record. To do that, I need a book. So let me grab a book. And I'm back and I'm holding up a book in front of the camera. You can see from the title it's called The Red and the Black, and it's a classic novel written by Stendhal. It was a French classic, and I believe the publication date originally was 1926. We'll enter this book in through the library. In order to do that, I'm going to start from the browse screen, the basic publication screen, rather than from the edit screen. And I do that because I want to initialize the environment for the edition of the new book using the code in the add icon. So we'll play the application, use the add icon to initialize those variables and navigate to the screen and set this form into add mode. As you can see, I have been practicing without you. Sorry, I didn't mean to leave you behind. Excuse me. But I was practicing a little bit before I came on screen. So the title of the book is The Red and the Black. It comes in one volume. I'm going to do my little hokey catalog number, which is just a little algorithm. Actually, one of these days I will figure out an algorithm that I can use automatically to generate those. Excuse me. As I just said, it was originally published in 1926. If I consult the last page in the book, I can see that it was written, it contains 630 pages. It is a work of literary fiction. And I'm going to say translated from French by C.K. Scott Moncrief. It's in fair condition. It's been beat up a lot. The edition that I happen to have is a, let's see here, Modern Library edition from 1953. Modern Library 1953. Modern 1953 version. And it is, who knows how many printings. It's not mentioned there, and it is published by Modern Library Books. I don't think I've got Modern Library Books in my list. I will have to come back and add that later. I don't have that publisher set up, and my form is not set up to add publishers yet. That's done from a different screen, and I don't have that ready. So I'll have to skip that and come back. And it is a book. Now, I don't have a way to take the cover photo. If I try to take the cover photo with the webcam, it doesn't work very well. I have to use my phone to do that really well. So I will defer that, come back later. Right now, what I primarily wanted to show you was the process that runs when I click the save icon. Now, it'll take just a minute. It will run through, save this information into the publications table, and do some other housekeeping maintenance work to get us back to a state where we need to be. As soon as it is complete, we return to the publications page. And now, if I filter on red, I now have the basic information about this book entered. Now, as you see, I'm going to have to correct the publisher because I don't have Modern Library entered yet. And I have to use my phone to take the image of the cover photo. But basically, those elements which I do have in the edit page or the edit publication screen worked, and we can go back and look at how all of that happened. Before we jump into adding a new record, I want to refresh your memory about what happens when we click the Add Item icon. The first thing it does is set a publication variable, var publication, to blank, or nothing. We didn't find any data. It's a record, but there's nothing in it. So if we play the application and click plus, we end up on the Edit Publication screen, ready to go. At this point, the value of var publications is blank or nothing. It hasn't been set. And we set it to blank, which is nothing. We fill in our fields. I won't do that here. I want to show you the code behind the Save button. Now this looks a bit intimidating because there's a wall of text here, but we can step through it a little bit at a time and make sense of it. The first thing we do is we check to see whether publication is a blank, which means we're looking at a brand new record that we're entering for the first time, or if there is an existing record in var publications. If not is blank, which means var publications does have a value, it is a record, we're going to patch or update or change that record in the publications table. I'll skip that section now because the part we do want is this part here. This from here up happens only if we're editing an existing record, if the value of var publications is not blank, if we're looking at an existing record. If var publications is blank, there's nothing in here, we're going to add a new record for the first time. The patch command allows us to do that. We can either edit or add using patch. So the syntax here is this: patch. What data source will be patched? In this case, table publications. Defaults publication tells the patch command itself that we're going to create a new record. That's the method which indicates to the patch command, add a new record. Defaults for table publication. And then we specify the fields in that table that are going to be entered from values on our screen, or in this case, in the form on our screen. Publication title comes from a input field called edit publication title.text. It takes the text value from that input field and puts it in publication title. The same is true for number of volumes. It takes the text value from that input field or input text field control, puts it into the number of volumes. Notice that we're using the value again here to convert that text into a number. We're converting it to a number value so that it will actually fit into the number data type of number of volumes. Catalog number, we're using the upper expression to convert whatever I type into that input control, the edit publications catalog number text, to uppercase for consistency. Year published, we're going to let that go in as a string. The number of pages, again, convert the number of pages to a number value using the text, whatever is typed into that input text control. The edition, the printing, any comments, the media ID, the cover photo link, the publisher ID, the genre ID, the media condition. And when all of that is complete, patch sends all of that back to our table. I'm going to spend some additional time in our next session talking about this section here, because this is unique to SharePoint lists, and it's unique to the fact that once again we're looking at lookup fields, well, except for the cover link photo. excuse me, the cover photo link. That's a text string, but I got them in this order and I can't skip over it. Each of these other ID fields are in fact lookup fields in a SharePoint list. And because of that fact, we run into the same kind of additional complication that we ran into when we were looking at whether the PowerApps application exposes the internal name ID or the alias name that we gave. In this case, it's a little more of a problem because we have to convert, I call it cracking open the lookup field to get to the values inside to insert them correctly. I will point out that once again, we are taking the ID, which is value, we convert it to a number, and we convert the value to a text string. I am not 100% sure why you have to do both of those. The resources that I found on the internet describing this is how they do it. I think I get it, but I could not possibly explain it in terms that make sense to a SharePoint expert. All I know is that I have an ID, which has to be a number, and a value, which has to be a text string. And I get them both from the ID of the variable var media type ID. And the same is true for publisher, genre, and media condition. And again, we'll dive into this section more in our next session. Once we have added that record, we're going to refresh table publication. Here you see that we're doing a refresh on the table publication. We're using this notation with the square brackets around it and the @ sign in front of it to indicate unambiguously that we want to go to the original data source and retrieve whatever records are there, so that the following steps, which is to rebuild the collection, is done with the full and complete updated record set in the original data source. This will sometimes work with just a plain name table publication, but in order to be certain that we're unambiguously retrieving the original data source, we use this notation. At least that's my understanding of the way the documentation describes it. You may want to do some research on your own to verify what I'm saying. Once we have refreshed our data source, we rebuild the collection and we clear our two helper collections. You saw this in a previous video where we built the original publications collection. Note that this time we clear the publications collection because at this point, publications collection has all of the records up until the point where we added that new record, but it does not yet include that new record. So we're going to clear it out completely and rebuild it from scratch. I think if I were a little more adventurous, I might want to try to just add the new record into my existing collection. And at some point, when I get a little more experience under my belt and feel more confident with my ability to manage things correctly, I might do that. At this point, I'm still just going to take the path of greatest certainty and clear that collection. The rest of that code is exactly the same as it is in our onStart macro, where we build that collection in the first place, except this time when we're done, we have a new collection with all of the old records plus the one we just added in it. When that's all complete, then we navigate back to the publication screen. And that's pretty much it for adding a new record. In our next session, we'll come back and look at this section where we're dealing with these lookup fields in more detail and try to understand or help you understand the OData type issue, the ID, and why we're doing these conversions on the ID. But that's enough material for a session on its own. So for now, I will just say I hope you're enjoying what you're seeing. If you do enjoy it, or if you do get something out of it, please hit the like button, subscribe to my channel, and come back for the next session.